Hey, Bill. Bill, you look like you're somewhere else again.
He's elsewhere having fun.
Yeah. He's always mobile, like in some sort of.
All right, we're in Florence, Alabama, but we'll
Wow.
be
Wow.
home in a couple weeks or something like that. So
Or something like that. It's nice to have a hard set
something
schedule,
like
isn't it?
Guess it's
something like that.
retired.
No, we don't plan and everything else. Actually, we're in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, in Florence. We're just right across the way from it, and a lot of good music stuff here.
I can imagine. Proud Boys of Alabama.
And I bet
This
it's
isn't
over.
Cowboys.
No, the Proud Boys.
Oh, right.
Oh,
The name of a group, not Cowboys.
So we actually don't really have a quorum yet because Steve's
Right.
not properly hooked up.
It's troubleshooting.
Do we know if the others are coming?
Dan and David are not. So if Charlie shows up, when Charlie shows up, we'll get going and then Steve can get his stuff taken care of because we don't have a long meeting tonight.
Is 21 Malcolm Hoyt still on the agenda?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need a quorum to meet all together or only if, for certain actions?
We need a quorum to meet. So at some point, Steve will get his audio working.
Oh, we got
And there's Charlie. So
Oh, good, there we go.
I guess we can start. Because Gretchen's here. We'll see if we can get this done before Steve can get his audio fixed. All right. Let's get this meeting, let's bring this meeting to order. This is the March 7th, 2023 Newburyport Conservation Commission meeting taking place on the Zoom platform. And this meeting is being recorded. First item on the agenda are the February 7th meeting minutes. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Yes, I do actually. Under number 5, certificates of compliance, the second line, I think Gretchen, you just forgot the word put. So was not suitable to be put back in place, I think. That's the way that should have read.
Touch.
Sound all right?
Yep.
Do you got it? Come back to the, I have this.
Yep.
Okay.
And is that it? We got anything else?
Lost my-
You can get a motion?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Can I get a second?
Well, I would just say that should be approved with as corrected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Bill, to add that to your motion? Okay,
I think I
Okay.
can't.
was that it, Carol?
Yes, that was it. Not a
Okay.
big deal, but it just didn't make sense otherwise.
All right, I'll second it. Do a roll call. Charlie Lovisetti?
I was gonna say, should I vote here because I wasn't present for this meeting?
I believe you can.
Okay, well, in that case, yes, it seems accurate.
All right, Steve, we will skip for now. Carol Wagon,
Yes,
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. All right, on to Plum Island updates.
Okay, I'll just give a brief overview of what happened at the MRBA meeting last Friday. MRBA met to talk about the status of the Merrimack River Dredge project, which has been on hold since before Christmas for various reasons. And the latest of which is that the contractor needs to bring up a new piece of equipment to handle the waves and conditions in outside the mouth of the river. So in order to do that, they need an extension on the time window in which they were supposed to finish the work. They had until April 1st because of the piping plover nesting season, and they need to go beyond that now in order to get this new dredge up and get the work done. So we were waiting to hear back from Division of Marine Fisheries on whether or not they would allow this extension into the piping plover season. And they have just today issued their letter permitting the extension as long as there's a plover monitoring program in place, which has also been designed and approved through DCR. So that's all set to go. That satisfies a special condition in our order of conditions, which said that they could work until April 1st. And only beyond April 1st, if approved in writing by the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, which we now have. So that's what's happening with the dredge. And they expect approximately 200,000 or more cubic yards of sand to come out of this next phase of the dredge project, be placed in front of Reservation Terrace. So hopefully that goes well and should be done this spring. I'm not exactly sure when the end date will be, but
I thought it was interesting that there's also seems to be a great quantity of sand available for the beach over at the captain's place there. I forget what it's called, where the boats are stored. So that additional sand that they'll be getting at some point, it didn't say when.
yes, that's a good point, because they're not expecting as much sand out of the dredge project as they originally designed for. So it was supposed to be the nourishment project was supposed to go all the way up from the jetty all the way up to 77th Street, and now it's looking like it'll stop around 75th Street. So in order to sort of supplement what's coming out of the river, Charos has, a pile of sand in his driveway or the parking area at the Captain's Lady, which could be brought to the nourishment area, which is already permitted for nourishment at 77th Street. So that may be something that takes place. We need to look and see what kind of quantity is available on the parking lot, because we won't be able to go into the beach area or dune. So we'll just have to see what there is piled up there and possibly add that to the overall quantity.
I mean, have you been down there at all, Julia? Because I mean, Leela seemed quite distraught about what was happening already, since the dredging hadn't finished and some of the houses were, I don't know if there was further exposure or it was just the way it's been now for a while and they were just nervous.
I would say that it's gotten worse for sure over time. As the dredge has been paused, we've lost all of the sand that was put down during the first phase, which was only, again, 10% of the total expected quantity, but that's all gone. And I would estimate that that's probably gone and more. So we're sort of worse off than when we started. That's not like an official statement in terms of any measurements that may have been done. It's just what it looks like out there to me, judging by where the beach elevation is against the rocks that were put down and against the road elevation and all that. And I think that the residents are seeing the same thing. So they're concerned that the longer this goes on without this dredge taking place, that it's just going to continue to.
We were
erode.
so lucky we didn't have any nor'easters this winter, really any big storms.
Yeah, very lucky. And it's still March, so
That's true.
never know.
Yeah. Julie, is it the old dredge that's still sitting out there?
Yeah, that Oyster Bay dredge. I thought they were gonna take that away to bring in a new barge and a new dredge equipment, but I guess it's still out there.
Yeah, yesterday or the day before I saw
Yeah.
something still out there that looked like the old one, but
H&L, the contractor, was waiting. They didn't want to go down and bring up this other piece of equipment and haul it all the way up here from wherever they have it stationed further south until they were given the go-ahead by Army Corps after receiving approval for the extension. They just know they're not going to make it by April 1st, and they're not going to bring up this additional equipment unless they have the extension. So that may be
Okay.
why it's still sitting out there.
okay. All right, then. Let's move on to certificates, compliance, etc. First item is the TMM Realty Trust 3 Louise Street, request for certificate of compliance.
Okay, let me see if we have here. Raise your hand, please, if you're here. I see Chris and Tom Millerani. I'm going to promote them to panelists. If there's anyone else here representing the 3 Louise Street project and you want to speak, raise your hand and I will move you over also to be a panelist. Chris and Tom Millerani should be able to unmute yourself. Point. There they are. Okay, Tom, are you here?
You guys want to, there you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Chris Melorani. I'm on my phone, but we're actually in Jeff Hoffman's office and can't figure out how to have you guys hear us.
Okay, hold on.
Or see us.
I can hear you and you should be able, I found Jeff Hoffman.
Okay, so I'm doing this on my phone, Julia, so.
We're getting.
Join us. Wait a minute, so Jeff's trying to join on his computer. So-
Okay. Is that?
Okay, you gotta unmute yourself. See over the bottom. There you
If
go.
you, Chris, if you're on the computer and on your phone at the same time, you might want to close out of one or the other, because we're getting a lot of.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of feedback.
Can you hear us now?
Barely. Jeff Hoffman's mic is off if you're at the computer.
How's that?
That's a lot better.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out the workings here. Can everyone hear us now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So we're applying for a certificate of compliance here for them. And we believe we've brought in all the pertinent information for the submission for the board to look at and review. In my personal and professional opinion, I believe that they've gone above and beyond what was probably expected of them, but that's, your decision, obviously. I was very impressed with what they did and, how it was done when I visited the site and saw the property, and the photos that I submitted, show that quite clearly. So would like to address any questions the board has or concerns or comments that were not addressed.
Can you scroll down the photos, Julie?
You can see, just to point out, this is the open metal grate ramp into the garage. Can't see under it from that angle, but they had proposed.
Oh, that's a
that-
plum bushes, right?
Yeah, there's a,
Where,
They
between the
planted some
sticks
plum
there?
bushes.
Yeah, they're just in the growth stage now, growing.
so the key was that they needed to have vegetation growing underneath this ramp in order to satisfy the requirements under the ordinance for vegetated area. They needed 35% of the area underneath the ramp to be vegetated in order to meet the requirement. And as you can see, it's pretty much 100% vegetated under there. It was almost an experiment to use this kind of a situation to get into the garage, but it worked extremely well because the water and light can get through and everything is taken underneath there really well.
Yeah, water and light can get through there, so that's a good thing to see.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that was a great ramp. But it is a great ramp for this sort of situation.
Thank you.
No,
Those plantings.
It all looks good.
Yeah, the tanks are elevated.
Tanks are elevated. Yeah, so, I mean, this project came out really well, I think, having seen the site. Basically everywhere, every area of the property is vegetated outside of the driveway. And then there's an additional parking area, which is noted in the letter from the engineer, that the driveway off of Louise Street is gravel and larger than shown on plan. And that's true. They proposed a small 8-foot wide driveway area right here off of Louise Street. Here's the ramp going into the garage, but then there was a pull-off sort of parking area that was proposed over here, and they made it larger. So as you can see, this area was added to allow for the parking of another car. Tom Millerani went back and redid all the calculations to make sure that there was still enough vegetated area on site, given this new expanded parking area, and they are still significantly above the required amount and the proposed amount of vegetated area on site, even with that added right here, this added gravel parking area, which is shown right here.
Okay. Commission have any questions? Steve, can we hear you?
I don't know, can you?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can.
We can.
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's really good. All right. So we have anything else? I'll accept the motion. From anybody but me? Oh, come on, folks. Somebody.
Well, I'll make a motion, but I'm not sure what the motion is since I missed the first part of this.
Oh, okay. I'll accept the motion to issue a complete COC on this property.
So moved.
Second,
All right, roll call. Charlie Lovisetti,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep, thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Yeah.
Steve, do you end up on Amantha's computer?
Yes.
All righty. Next one is 3 Stanley Tucker Drive. Request for extension.
Yes, okay, and I believe we've got Jeff Roloffs here to represent the applicant on this project. So Jeff, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. Jim Zempel is here as well, so I will do the same for Jim, who's the applicant. Okay.
There we go. Thank you. Jeff Roloffs. I represent the Zampel companies. Jim and Chris, I believe, are both here. Really just to answer any questions that you have. But so this first matter relates to Zampel's property at 3 Stanley Tucker Drive. As explained in my letter of March 1st, we had orders of conditions issued for this property and 17 Malcolm Hoyt Drive, which is the next matter on your agenda. We're requesting 3-year extensions of both of these orders of conditions. Basically, right when Zampel was preparing to expand its facilities at these 2 properties, the COVID pandemic hit, and it really hit them hard, changed their whole sort of business operations. And right now they're in the process of leasing out 17 Malcolm Hoyt Drive and trying to sell 3 Stanley Tucker Drive. They want to preserve the rights if they do sell 3 Stanley Tucker, for the next owner to complete the work that was approved through this order of conditions. And then with respect to 17 Malcolm Hoyt Drive, same thing there. They just want to preserve the right to build out what was approved in the event that they get into a situation where they're able to do that and the work is justified. So we're looking for 3-year extensions on both of these. I do explain in my letter, the original 3-year periods would have expired in September of 2022 for both of these orders. Due to this, the COVID legislation and state orders that were issued that relate to the state and local orders of conditions, those terms were extended in this case by the length of the declared state of emergency. So 462 days, I believe it is. That extends the term for both of these orders out to December 11 of this year. And we're requesting 3-year extensions for both of these orders that would extend out to December 11, 2026.
Okay. Anybody got any questions?
Well, I'm just curious if the order of conditions travels with the property or with the owner. In other words, if the property is sold, do the order of conditions still hold?
It does. It runs with the land.
Okay,
And any new property owner would be responsible for compliance with that order of conditions. They have-
Right.
okay.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request for extension.
Why don't we'll do 2 separate votes since they're 2 separate,
Okay. So this is for 3 Stanley Tucker.
okay? Get a second?
Second,
All right, roll call. Charlie Lovisetti,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And for the K&B Sampel Realty, the 3 Stanley Tucker. Get a motion?
motion, motion to approve the request for extension for 12 Malcolm Hoyt.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just point of order. So the second order of condition relates to 17 Malcolm Hoyt.
Oh, 17 Malcolm Hoyt, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
agenda restates 3 Stanley Tucker, but
Right,
that
okay.
second one relates to 17 Malcolm Hoyt.
Okay. Those were 17 Malcolm White. Okay, a second.
Second,
Roll call, Charlie Lovisetti,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right.
Great. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a good night.
Good luck
too.
to you.
Thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to open the public hearings?
So
so
moved.
moved. Second,
All right, roll call, Charlie Lovisetti,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. First item is Craig Pacina, Hill Business Park Realty Trust, 21 Malcolm Hoyt Road, notice of intent.
So I've got Tom Hughes and Craig Pacina, hopefully being promoted to panelists. There's Tom, there's Craig. Okay, so you all can unmute yourselves and give us an update on where things stand with this project. I just pulled up the latest project plan that we have.
Okay, did you also raise Ryan Clements from
Oh, no, I
Meet
will.
and Acosta?
Yeah, well,
All right, thank you. All right, so good evening. Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting, here on behalf of Hale Business Realty. Basically, we wanted to give you an update, kind of go over the most recent plans. We still have a couple things that we are going to be doing for the planning board, and also a couple things we're going to be doing for you. So I wanted to go through all that, get any, sort of additional feedback. And then we're going into the planning board one more time, and then I would look to come back to you. I think we're now looking, we would want to continue to your next meeting for now, but we may skip one more meeting depending on whether or not we're able to get a package in tomorrow for the planning board. Anyhow, so what you see in front of you is a revised site plan from what you last saw. I know I spoke with you briefly at one sort of live continuance request we made on the project. When we were last in front of you, we only had one entrance off Hale Street. We mentioned to you at a prior meeting that the fire department had wanted full circulation around the building, which is kind of funny because on the next door property, they didn't require this. And yet this building is about the size of a single family home. It's like 2,600-ish, that's plus or minus 100, but you know, square feet in size. It's not an enormous building. It's only 3 units as opposed to the other building for sort of sense of scale. I think the other building is significantly more. So what Steve has done is he's in response to some DEP comments, he's redesigned the stormwater system to use stormwater wetlands. Essentially, water sheets down through a break in the curb to that the forebay down at the bottom of your screen there, and then it is piped over to the stormwater wetland, which you see off to the right. One of the things that will become clearer, but you can see on this plan, this includes all our landscape in addition to the site. The planning board has asked us to separate out the landscape into its own plan, just so it's easier to see. What we do have along there, within jurisdiction along the street, we have some red cedar. We did include, not in the frontage, we included a tulip, I mean, not in the buffer, but we included a tulip tree, which is a really beautiful, large, deciduous flowering tree that in my opinion isn't used enough. And the idea of the landscape along Hale Street, along with the facade on Hale Street, which has been made to look residential in style, is to kind of give it almost like a residential look to it. Rather than mulch in and amongst those plants, we're using a shade tolerant native seed mix for New England wetland plants. Off on the side, we have some red maple. There's blueberry mixed in there. You know, where we're in the buffer zone, we've got winterberry, blueberry, some dogwoods. We've got a cranberry viburnum. It's kind of a nice palette of natives. Off to the side on the left there, there's Cornus Florida, which is a flowering dogwood. And one of the changes Steve will be making in response to the planning board is he'll be, I don't know if you can see on the left hand of the side of the parking lot, there's a whole bunch of dogwoods. We'll be creating a gap in there for snow storage, and then we'll be seeding with a native salt tolerant grass mix that actually has some sedges and rushes, but it's essentially, it will do really well and it will survive, you know, snow storage, even if it's got some salt content. So overall, we've made some other changes in response to early first hearing comments that some of you may recall about. We had clipped over the 25-foot line. We've cleaned that up. We're entirely inside the 25-foot. So, you know, so with all that, I think we've got a good plan. You know, I would prefer we didn't have to have that second access, but we have made that one way. The fire department is okay with that being one way. So the one that's closest to the stream and to the wetlands is narrowed up, and the larger one is outside of the buffer zone. So the other things that we still owe you, I still need to get onto an aerial photograph and onto the plan, the location where we're proposing to mow a path, and then put essentially a footbridge that can take a mower over the stream, and then mow the path up to that upland area. We will be updating, as I said, the plans to respond to the planning board on the trees. And then Steve Sawyer is also responding to some stormwater comments from Phil Christensen. But I think what you're looking at, unless the commission has comments or changes you're looking for, I mean, I think you're looking at pretty close to the final iteration of the plan. The the comments from Phil Christensen, Steve tells me, are not going to make any significant difference in the stormwater or anything. It's just dotting i's and crossing t's pretty much.
Tom, can we get the planting plan too? Just
Yes, no, I plan on submitting that to you as well. Yes. They're in there, and all of the proposed plants are in kind of a green, but they blend, unless you zoom in, you really don't see them very well.
okay. We got anything?
Yeah, I do. The way this thing was originally packaged in the notice of intent, it's lumping this project with 23 Hale Street when it's talking about percentages
Right.
and all that. My understanding, I've talked to Julia, and it sounds like we're supposed to just look at this site only. And so I think we need maybe a new calculation of percentages.
Right, that's
of
on.
buffering.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Julia has asked for those numbers. Steve Sawyer was away and has just gotten back, and I was hoping to have those numbers for you tonight. I want to explain the reason it was lumped in with 23 Hale is when 23 Hale was permitted, this was all one lot. And if you read that performance standard that's in your regs that we need the waiver from, that applies cumulatively to the lot that permit was on. And I did not want to come into the commission making an assumption that I could A&R a lot away and continually redo the 20%. So what we gave you was the master number, but what we will give you so you have an understanding of the percent on this lot is we're also going to give you the percent on what remains after that other lot was taken out, and then what will remain after the lot is given to the city for percentages. But we have asked for a variance to that 20% standard. But I want to be careful how we portray that, because I firmly believe a read of the regs means we have to give you that number in the context of the original lot we got the original permit on, or else you could picture the sort of way somebody could just continually work around your 20% limit. So, but we'll get you those numbers so that you have a sense of it. When we give you the number for this and the remaining portion of the lot before we do this A&R, most certainly the number will go down, because when that other lot was A&R'd out, it was mostly buffer zone and very little wetland kind of went with it. And so I think if I were to calculate the percentage on the remaining lot that's over at next door, it's probably much higher than 20%. So I would expect we're going to be lower when we do that math for you. But in the end, I believe compliance with the regs, I need to demonstrate that we're not playing games to get around your 20%.
I agree with that, Tom. But I do want to point out something else that just makes this whole issue very tricky. And while your intent is appropriate and in the spirit of our regulations, practically speaking, like, it causes me to wonder if we are, let's say, counting this new impact as being associated with 23 Hale Street and its larger parcel, right? Then that would, even though they're maybe under separate ownership now or in the future, 23 Hale Street, let's say they had only impacted, and I think they were like 19% or something before,
Right.
I can't remember. Let's say they had only been at 15% or 12%, and they wanted to, in the future, put an addition on or whatever within the buffer zone. They would have, this project would somehow have been counted already against them. Yet
Well,
they haven't done an expansion on their own property yet. So in other words, somebody else is taking away their additional rights to additional buffer zone impact without their permission.
I actually think so. So in the process of A&Ring that lot out of the master parcel, that lot was left with more than 20% buffer impact. right? Because it didn't have the rest of the parcels buffer to count
Uh-huh.
against.
Okay,
So it's already over 20 now. So if they need to do an expansion of the other lot, they would need to come up with a public benefit and meet the variance criteria.
so in other words, when they sold off this piece and A&R their original lot,
Right,
they would have had to have considered that as a future.
right. It was a
consequence.
consideration in, you know, that they understood when they did that. And,
Got it.
you know, and if you think about it, if you're right around 20, or even if you're at 15, and you try to then create a lot that's at 0, almost by default, what you've taken out
You're
is going to
taking
be going up.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, you know, we'll give you all the numbers so the commission is aware of how things are impacted and how it relates overall.
Mhm.
But, you know, and I think there's only a handful of parcels in Newburyport that somebody could even try to kind of A&R chunks out of. But I think you just don't want to set a precedent that would allow somebody to play a game. Which is why we've asked for the variance, why we've got a proposal in front of you to give the city a good sized chunk of land. And, you know, and why we engaged you early on to discuss this before we even applied. So, so hopefully that answers that question, but I think giving you those numbers is a fair thing. We tried to only portray the numbers in the light of how they fit within the regs as it pertained to the overall parcel, because that's the way the regulatory analysis kind of laid out. But I think to be able to think about the other numbers makes sense.
Okay. That work for you, Bill?
Yeah. I got a couple other questions as well. I guess you'll be up in the hardscape numbers due to the second access as well, of course.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't think it makes a huge difference. But we'll be giving you, you know, and Steve may actually have the calculation numbers on here, but we'll be giving you a complete update prior to the next meeting with the updated plans. I'll update all the numbers in the NOI narrative. I'll update that narrative and give it to you in red line strikeout so that you can kind of see what changed with the fire department access.
Okay. And is there a reason that has to be bituminous pavement versus gravel?
I think that there's a number of different issues. One is if it's gravel, it needs ongoing maintenance and you're going to have vehicles coming and going. I think because of its use, I think bituminous makes the most sense. Given the amount of sort of use and where it would have. You know, could we consider other options? I don't know if the planning board has a requirement for pavement or not. That's something I'm not usually a planning board type person. But the other thing to just keep in mind is this is still an extremely small development. And Julie, I don't know if you can flip to one of the plans that kind of shows the whole parcel. You're kind of looking at an industrial park plan that is on a 20 scale, which you're not typically used to seeing. Normally you're getting about a 30, 40, or 50 scale because the buildings are so big. You know, what we're talking about is not a very huge development. So it's not an awful lot of pavement. We are collecting all that water. We're treating it. It's all going into a stormwater wetland. The stormwater wetland itself is probably one of the most sort of ecologically friendly ways of handling the stormwater. It's vegetated as a wetland. It provides really good treatment. So
Okay.
if you can see the building on the left.
Yeah, I know.
So we're talking like a third of that
Mhm.
in terms of size. It's a much smaller development. I thought there was one there that showed the whole thing, but
And just one additional comment. This is not an objection or anything else, but it looks like maybe 70 or 80% of that lot A4 is already a wetland. So the only development potential it does have is just in that sliver in the northwest, that little part in the northwest portion of that site, not where the hand is. Let me see.
Yeah,
Down there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that I think we showed in the first hearing, we showed how that is sort of connected to upland on the adjacent parcel. So if we didn't do a development and provide the city with this land here, the sort of only other potential use would be, if it were sold to the adjacent property. And then they would be able to, go in there. Obviously, they have to meet all the performance standards and everything, but it isn't the wetland between that and Malcolm Hoyt doesn't protect that area from development. But it's a beautiful little upland area. Not entirely little. I think it's bigger than the building site we're looking at up along Hale. And I think during the site walk, we kind of saw it's a really nice spot. And what we'll be doing is creating, prior to transfer, a mowed path with a way to cross the stream for the city if they choose to continue to mow it, to mow that path. And I think that conceivably could be used for people to go for a walk out there and enjoy it. The wetland is very walkable too. It's not, other than the stream, it's not a wetland that ponds for any serious length of time. It's just during floods and after significant rains where you'll get, puddles here and there within the field.
So, there's right now a break in the guardrails on Malcolm Hoyt adjacent to this. Was that you guys that did that, or was that?
No, actually, that question I think was asked at the technical review meeting. I'm pretty sure that's where it was asked. It was definitely asked of us, and the water department jumped in and said it was them.
Oh,
They had a water leak and went in to fix it. So, yeah, wasn't us.
All right.
All right. One more.
Yep, go ahead, Bill.
Just a small comment on this one, but next time you file a NOI in this area, it'd be good to have a locus map that shows Malcolm Hoyt. Yeah, the USGS map, and it's,
Right. They haven't updated that USGS map on on the web. That quadrangle hasn't been updated in forever. I've actually been looking. There is a way for me to, and I'm still trying to sort it out. There's a national mapper that creates a USGS map, and supposedly there's a way for me to have ArcMap access that. So I've just got to learn the technical skill to be able to create something similar. But following the USGS locus map thing, we've got to use those 1984 maps, and there's a lot of roads in Newburyport that were built in the early 90s that don't show up.
you can't use an aerial photo.
They're in there. I've got an
A
aerial
locus for a locus map. Minor comment.
Yeah, no, it's in the Wetland Protection Act instructions. It's supposed to be a USGS locus map. So
Okay. Good.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess, Julia, we need to make sure that the paperwork for the adjacent property reflects the change in the percentage of buffer, so that we are aware of that.
Yeah, so I mean, that order of conditions has been closed out with a certificate of compliance. So I don't know
Right.
how to go back in and add anything to that. All I can say is that going along with what Tom pointed out is that by separating out this new parcel from 23 Hale Street, they are now actually probably way over the 20%
Right.
buffer zone impact. So no matter what in the future, they would be restricted from any additional development in the buffer zone, just by default.
Okay.
right, and they, I would never rule out creative minds coming up with some public benefit to offer. if there is such a thing with a lot like that, but maybe there is, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's providing like a trailhead to be able to get into that upland directly or something. I mean, maybe there is a way that the commission and the property owners of that, if they ever needed to do some type of expansion, could work something out, but it would have to be through the variance process as your regulations currently stand.
Julie, isn't
Okay.
there some way to file some kind of notice or amendment or something so that it shows up in both properties?
We can't amend it. We can't do anything to that
Mm.
associated with that old order of conditions anymore because they're free and clear. They did the work, they applied for a certificate of compliance. The certificate of compliance was issued. It's now clean. It's off their deed so that we can't go back in and like say, oh, now we're going to attach a new special condition to something that you've already.
And the applicants are also part owners, you know, both Craig and Pat own units in the building, so they're part owners of that as well. They're well aware of that, and they're also well aware that that most of that is within the buffer zone and would require a permit before they could do anything anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I
so-
think
so-
the way to handle something like this in the future is if we have a lot that's this big, that we could envision eventually being subdivided, that at the time, maybe some special conditions go in regarding future subdivision, future development, et cetera, but we didn't do that fortunately with 23.
Yeah, one last point there is when you permitted that, you permitted it like 19 or 19.8 even, I think. So it's already in the record that if they come back in,
Yeah.
even if they hadn't done this, it wouldn't take much to exceed the 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the fact that you have an ordinance that provides jurisdiction, you have the Wetland Protection Act that provides jurisdiction. And anybody coming in with any filing has to demonstrate compliance with your regs.
Right, and it's gonna be based on that lot alone, so.
Right, yeah.
We're already at the edge, so.
Yeah.
All right, we have anything else? Anything from the public who is partial owner of this lot? Not seeing any. All right, so you looking for a continuance until the next meeting?
Yeah, and like I said, I may, once I find out our final planning board meeting, we do think we're gonna close out at the next planning board meeting, so once I find out that date, I may adjust and continue past this, but we'll sort that out.
Okay, so we need a continuance until the 21st.
Okay, so moved.
Wait, before you move that, hi, Ryan Clemens
Yes,
from Media Marketing
okay.
Pasta. Tom, just want to say we do plan on requesting continuance from the planning board tomorrow to their meeting on April 5th.
Okay.
Oh.
So,
Then just go until after that.
well, let's,
I
Let's- I
prefer to
think-
then move it to April 4th.
Let's
Or,
do
well,
the-
you're on April 5th with planning. That brings us.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, we're confident we're gonna close out at that planning board meeting. So I'm not even sure we have to go past it, but maybe what we should do is why don't we do to the 4th,
Yeah.
which is the night before the planning meeting. By then, we would have gotten our submission in and had confirmation from Phil Christensen on everything. And if all the stormwater is closed out and if planning staff seem happy and content with what we've submitted, we can come in and close out with you guys and then close out with planning the following night.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, so with that, I'll change my request to continue to your first meeting in April.
Okay, I'll amend the motion then to continue to April 4th.
Second,
All right, roll call, Charlie Lovisetti,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes,
and I vote yes.
Thank
All
you
right,
so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
right.
All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearings?
So moved.
second,
Roll call, Charlie Lovisetti.
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
yes.
and I vote yes. All right, do we have anything else this evening we'd like to discuss?
One quick item under old business. I don't know if any of you got my email earlier this afternoon. It was a little late, but we had talked at the last meeting about a letter of support for the CPC grant application associated with Colby Farm Lane Meadow. And it's for improvements at the meadow, removal and replacement of that awful dilapidated split rail fence, and putting up some signs, or a sign at the trailhead, and a kiosk with information about the site and habitat, etc. And then also identification of a location for and construction of a new public access trail that would go in and around this open space. So I drafted this letter. Okay. Look.
Looks good to me.
And you guys all know what's going on, yes? So I'm gonna make Steve explain it to you.
Me here on the committee.
Yeah, but you're one of the promoters, man. Yeah, no, there's a, what was it, $51,000 request for CPC to work on various things there, including taking down and putting up a new fence.
Yeah, the biggest thing is taking that old rotten fence down and putting up a new one, but just a single one along Low Street, not the corral like it is now.
Right.
And then getting a trail out there, which should be pretty easy because you're using the old racetrack.
Yeah. At the very least, you have the old
Yeah.
racetrack as a trail. We'll have people going out there running.
Well, except they can't make a complete circuit.
That'd actually be pretty cool. Because of the development, you mean?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to run the mower. We'll cut it off with a mower. So I guess we need a motion to approve said letter.
So moved.
Just do you mind if just a question about
go
this? So in terms of who's is the Community Preservation Committee going to manage this project?
No, our Matt, what's Matt's last name?
Smith.
What is it?
Matt Smith.
Smith, yeah. He's our open space manager. He's going to handle he's going to take care of getting the fence put up and all that, and manage all this stuff.
And I guess, so is he also I was just curious who's going to, there's a sign, right?
Yes.
I guess who's going to write the sign?
Good
Joe.
questions.
Me? Yeah, well,
We have a sort of a ad hoc open space management committee. That's how we hired this guy, Matt Smith, who's really fantastic. He's been doing all the monitoring of our conservation restriction areas. He's already developed some draft signage for our other open spaces. And so what he's done is he'll draft something, he'll show it to our group, which includes Andy Port, the planning director, Jordy Vining, the senior project manager in the planning office, Joe and Steve and myself, and Mike Dissett from the Open Space Committee. And so we're just trying to kind of create a consistency amongst the signage around the city for open space areas, as well as a consistency with things like kiosks and all that. And that's where Jordy is really helpful, because he's been doing that kind of work within our other open spaces and like the rail trail and all that.
Cool.
Matt would be the one implementing it. He'd be the one going out there and, marking the new trail location, establishing the right location for the kiosk and the sign and that kind of thing. But if you'd like to be involved, if you're interested, we can always use more help.
I was just curious who's going to write the sign, because I was looking, I was like, is this like, yeah, anyway. Okay. I second the, just because I was just curious who's going to be looking. I mean, I guess you'd have to do a little pollinator research.
Yes. And like for the kiosk, for the information on the kiosk, you mean about Pollinator Meadow and all that?
Well, yeah, exactly. The sign, like, the text of the sign and.
Yeah, well, yeah, we haven't developed that yet. So that's part of what the funding is for, is to
Right,
put some
right.
work in towards that and make sure that it looks good. I don't know if you've been out at Evergreen or the Yield Golf Course, the Port Place, that big open space down there. We did some kiosks through the order of conditions on that project, some informational signage and kiosks that came out pretty well. Steve, you helped a lot with that, didn't you?
Not so much with the signage, no, but I think Lisa and Tom did,
Yeah.
did most of it, or Tom.
At least reviewing it. So maybe when we get a draft, I think it actually, the Conservation Commission is responsible for this open space property. So when we get a draft, when we see a draft of whatever it is that's going to be used for the signage, I'll just bring it up at one of our public meetings and you guys can take a look and comment. And definitely think the commission should be on board with whatever it is that goes out there, since it is our property.
Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, Charlie Lovisetti,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes,
and I vote yes. And Julie, a signed copy's already in your inbox.
Oh, really?
It
Nice.
is.
Oh, thank you.
I went on an assumption.
You're so speedy. That's great. Thanks.
All right. Do we have anything else?
well, I'm just wondering if Bill is still out in Arizona.
No, no.
no, I'm in Alabama. We're
Oh.
right outside of Muscle Shoals right now. And it's a big, big music area. Lots of recording studios and good stuff like that. So,
When are you coming back?
probably within a couple weeks or so, but we make it up a day at a time.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't rush back if I were you. It hasn't been the nicest.
Well, we know that, right, but like tonight we'll be at a Cracker Barrel. How's that?
Ooh, lucky you.
Such a good
It's
road
so-
trip spot.
Oh my God.
It's okay. It works good.
And listen, I'm a former Cracker Barrel employee.
Wow.
Well, thank you for the Cracker Barrel stays. We've done quite a bit of that when we're not at a campground or somebody's house or whatever.
Enjoy
Cracker Barrel.
trip.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
You want a motion to adjourn?
Second,
All right. Roll call, Charlie Lovisetti,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
yes.
and I vote yes.
All right.
See you guys.
Good night,
Safe trips,
everyone.
Bill.
See you in a couple
All
Night.
weeks.
Thanks.
All
Bye.
right, yeah.